All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of In the Rack podcast. I am your host, Chad, and with me I have Nick and Hayden. We are just kind of spitballing it today, but it is coming up toward the end of the year, so I think it's good to talk about doing hard things. You know, I think a lot of people are going to be coming up with goals and New Year's resolutions and all this other stuff, right? And I think why not just start kind of talking about the things that we're doing? I mean, we're big on practicing what we preach and all that, and I think that we've all been not only a great model for our our team, but also for our patients and our friends and family. So I think let's kind of dive in a little bit as to like maybe some of the things that.
Well, I think first off, let's talk about the hard things that you guys are amidst training for. When we're recording this episode, Hayden's got a hard thing coming up.
Yeah, he does.
But when the episode's out, he's probably going to be done with it.
Yes. Well, yeah, most likely because I'm not that fast, but
definitely not right now.
Definitely not right now. But that doesn't mean that he's doing a lot of hard things in the next year.
For sure.
And for all of you that don't know, Hayden is doing a marathon this Sunday, actually. This Sunday, yep. Which is what's the date on this Sunday?
The 20th.
The 20th. Yeah. So October 20th. He's doing a marathon, and he's hoping to qualify for Boston. So we'll be hopefully having this conversation again come closer to April, because that will be when the Boston Marathon is. But he's also got a triathlon coming up as well. Dude's just trying to get everything in.
Trying to get it all in, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Half Ironman, then full Ironman. Get it all done.
Half Ironman December, and then full Ironman in April.
Yep. And he's not just like doing it just to do it. The dude's like competitive, like he's good, So I'd love to talk a little bit about, your training, kind of how you go about fitting that in your schedule. I mean, you're working full time like everybody else, man. Like everybody that's kind of listening to this and like, I don't have enough time. I would like to do that, but I can't do it because of X, Y, Z. But let's talk a little bit about your training, kind of how you navigate through that. I know you've got a coach now too, so that's been super helpful for you and kind of going through it. And, we would be big hypocrites if we didn't have a coach ourselves, right? So it's like, patients come to us as a coach, and, we need to rely on others as coaches as well, because we can't know it all, So give us a little.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about,
on that.
How I even got into the marathon. I think after I graduated college, I just got right into weightlifting, and that's where I thought I was going to spend most of my time. But I tend to get sick of certain things after a certain, not after a short period of time, but after a certain duration. I always look to what's next. And then
because you were a big CrossFitter.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was big into the CrossFit scene for a little while, and I was even big into that before I started training for my first marathon. But when I started training for my first marathon in 2022, I had no idea how to approach it, even in the slightest. I was just like, I'm just going to run. I'm just going to try to get as fit as possible, and then I'll be able to do this thing. But I learned quickly that that's not always the case. So this last time around, it was actually after the Tough Ruck, I think, is when I really got some more inspiration to do another marathon. Nick and I had trained for the Tough Ruck, which is 26.2 miles with a 40-pound pack on. And for whatever reason, during the race, or even after the race, you finish and you get all kind of, at least for me, like a sense of like euphoria. You're like, oh, it's finally over. Like I just suffered for 6 hours straight and now I'm done. Like this is the best feeling ever. And from like, and I know I felt the same way after my first marathon, but feeling that again just got me so hooked where I was like, oh, you know what? Well, I'm going to start training for another marathon. So I started training for that, I think shortly after the Tough Ruck in April. So probably around May is when I truly started training for this marathon. And then I think it was, I can't remember when Lake Placid Ironman was. I think it was March, April, sometime in July.
I was going to say, it's probably beginning of the summer.
I think it was beginning of summer in July. And my downstairs neighbors actually were doing it. And I had bumped into them like twice as they were finishing training runs. And then I had a friend who did it as well. And at that point, I was so deep into kind of the marathon training where I'm like, shit, well, I've always wanted to do an Ironman. I'm just going to sign up for it. And I just impulsively signed up for it. And then at that time, I was like, because it's so foreign, I was like, well, I should probably get a coach too. And that's when I did some research on the triathlon website, found a local coach out of Boston. His name is Tony Rich. He's been great. He actually holds the indoor world record for the Ironman. I still don't really know how that fully works, but
it has to be boring. Indoor Ironman.
I don't know how it works. I don't know. I would assume it's pool.
It's got to be pool, track, and
treadmill or something like that. I have no idea. But he's been great for me. He kind of took over my marathon training because he knew that was coming up. And the way he's prioritized things is I have A races, I have B races, and I have like C races. And A race is the Ironman. My B races are the half Ironman and the marathon. So we're just using those as tools to kind of get ready for the Ironman come March. But I kind of went off on a tangent there.
No, I think this is good to talk about the coach that you have, because
he started taking over all my training, and that truly helped. It changed the whole, like when I was talking about when I trained for my first marathon, where I was just running to run. Like my goal was, I'm going to have my short runs be an hour. I'm going to have my long runs be 2 hours. And I didn't really vary my pace. I didn't change my workouts at all. And when he took over my training, we started doing different types of workouts and different types of pace work and different types of cardiovascular work. And I think that's kind of elevated my running capacity significantly, where, it's no longer, can I get out and run for an hour? It's, like how much can I tolerate throughout the week? And on those hour runs, it's not necessarily try to cover as much distance as possible, but it's try to change your paces and get better at certain aspects of running through that.
So he's made a lot of changes to your training. Do you feel like you've made a lot of progress
absolutely
now versus not having a coach in the past?
For sure. 100%. In terms of tolerance to actual running and to cardiovascular training, 100%. Like I was just trying to say, when I get out for these hour runs, it's like I finish and I'm like, oh, that's it. Like I'm done for the day. My tolerance to actual distance running is through the roof. Like I couldn't have ever imagined running at my peak. This training or last training block, I covered 67 miles just of running, and then I biked for I think 50 miles that week too. So I covered well into the 100-mile plus of biking and running, and I would have never been able to do that before. It would have ruined me. And now it's like the fact that I was able to do 20 plus miles on a Sunday and then double back and do 18 on a Friday was kind of one of those things where I knew, like, okay, your fitness is where it's supposed to be, and your tolerance to endurance and load is through the roof. And he kind of structured that for me in a certain way, which I didn't know how to do before.
For sure. It's wild how like things that are challenging at one point become not so challenging as you become, whether it's more conditioned or, maybe you're training differently to the point where it's like, yeah, your body's better able to accommodate for the type of stress that you're putting
it is. It is really crazy, because I remember like I would run 16 miles or I'd run 15 miles on my long runs on my first marathon, and I'd be toasted for the rest of the day. Like I wouldn't be able to do anything. Like it ate up so much of my morning. It ate up so much of my afternoon. And there's been multiple occasions this training block where I've done 18 after work, or I've done 18 like in the morning on a weekend, and I carry about my day as it usually would, and I kind of don't even realize it. Like I feel fatigue, don't get me wrong, like, but it's not like the pain and the achiness that I would feel after doing something like that previously.
And let's pause there for a second. So this is the emphasis of it. Like Hayden's mentioned it numerous times, where his tolerance, right? And that's the emphasis for doing hard things, is like you increase your body's tolerance. The hard thing no longer becomes hard. So now you have to make the stimulus even more challenging to now be hard. And that's what we're talking about here. Like you don't have to do what we're doing. Like you don't have to run a marathon just because Hayden's doing it. Oh, that's the hard thing I have to do. Or you don't have to do a bodybuilding competition because that's what Chad's doing. The hard things, they come in all shapes and sizes, and it's relative to the person. So, but doing hard things for you as the individual has a lot of value, not just in getting to that finish line, like Hayden was saying, that euphoria you get, but you increase your body's tolerance to those things that you enjoy and that you want to do in life, and it's only going to help you in the long run.
And I think to like reemphasize that, is that easier things feel much easier, right? Like as you improve your tolerance to doing more difficult things that were once challenging for you, you don't even think about anymore. Where it's like, I know for me at first, like running was a chore, and now it's like I enjoy it. I finish a run and I can unwind and relax immediately, where previously I would never have been able to do that. And I think now that I've improved my tolerance to something like this, it sticks around for a while, because you've been there before. So physically your body adapts, but also mentally you kind of are like, oh, I've been here before. Like, yeah, this sucks right now, but I know it will be better in a couple weeks or a couple months.
Yeah, and I think it does go past the physical capabilities, right? Like you talked about the mental capabilities, but also like doing hard things helps you grow in so many more ways than just, oh, I'm faster or I'm stronger, right? Like you're pushing yourself to limits that you never thought you could push yourself to, which, not only you better appreciate what you're doing, but I feel like you grow both personally and professionally from that. Like, I mean, this could, change the way that you look at other things in life, and other things that you might find challenging. You're like, no, and I'm going to do it. I can run a marathon now. I feel like I could do this, you know what I mean? And then do that hard thing. And then that hard thing becomes less hard. You know what I mean? So it's like the personal growth that you have from just doing something that might not even be related to whatever it is that you're growing from could, totally carry over into so many things.
Absolutely.
In life. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I think that's the important thing too, for people to understand. It's, there's without doing challenging and hard things, like how do you grow? You just stay the same. You just don't change. You know what I mean? Whether it's physically, mentally, whatever, So I think being able to push yourself to those limits and know what you truly are capable of, both physically and mentally, kind of gives you a better appreciation for it, but also, allows you to be able to take bigger challenges, going forward.
And the physical, the hard thing doesn't have to be a physical endeavor, right? Like it can be a more mental endeavor, like getting in a cold tub, something along those lines. So those things can be worthwhile too. And I always think, when I think about this kind of stuff, I always think it's good to have the big stuff like the marathon, but then the stuff that you do regularly that's hard. Like, for example, the cold exposure. Getting in the cold is never going to not be hard. Like it's always going to be hard. You just improve, like Hayden said, your tolerance to it. So that's a nice stimulus that you can input regularly in your life to always have something hard there. And yeah, you might have to go colder, right? You might have to get something to be colder once you get more tolerant of it. But it's getting in cold is always going to be hard. Same thing with hot extreme heat, a sauna. It's always going to be hard. If you stay in it long enough, like you got to get to that point, that breaking point a little bit. But yeah, there's a ton of value, from a physiological standpoint. That on a cellular level, what's happening in the body, the nervous system level, all that kind of stuff. It's so impactful. And in a modern world where, it's a world of comfort and convenience. It's just, we don't have this. Our ancestors had hard things rooted in their lives. That was just the reality of life at that time, and that's what our bodies are accustomed to. That's what our brain's accustomed to. So, in this modern world, when you don't have that, there's definitely your primitive brain is searching for something, without a doubt. I have no doubts about that.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, it's, you make this a priority in your life. You know what I mean? And for all the people that are listening, they're like, I don't have time. Even if like you're a physical therapist, right? Like, but I'm treating patients all day. This dude will take an hour out of his day in between patients and go run 10 miles. I've seen it many times. And it's not that you can't do it, you just don't make it a priority, right? So the challenge isn't just being able to physically do something or mentally be able to do something, but it's also being able to manage your time efficiently to be able to make sure that those things happen so that you can complete these challenges, right? So it's like, the challenge goes far beyond the capabilities of being able to complete the marathon or beat your time or PR or whatever it may be, but making that the priority, and obviously keeping everything else in balance is also important, but that's not easy for everybody to do, and that's a challenge in itself.
I was going to say the same thing. It when you are working towards, if you have a specific goal in mind that is going to be a challenge for you and it's a hard feat, you always have to time manage appropriately. And for us, being here for a significant portion of the day, yes, we have our break and we tend to do most of our training and most of our hard things during that time period, but sometimes I'm booked all day. Over the summer, we were booked all day throughout. We moved some of our breaks around so we could get more people in, and we would still have to budget that time in, right? So like when I see an hour in my schedule, like I know a lot of people are like, oh man, I just worked for the last 5 hours. I want to take a little break right now. For me with a goal, like you have to select that time like and make it a priority to get out and do something that's going to be beneficial towards what you're working towards. And I think that's super important because you can find the time, right? Like for me right now, and like this isn't a brag, but I can go do 2-3 miles in 15-20 minutes, so it's like I can be back in 20 minutes and then I can be like, that's all you need to go do something challenging like that, like then go do it, right? I feel like a lot of people will use that time to go do something else, but if you have the time to do something beneficial for yourself,
well, yeah, instead of wasting time scrolling on social media, you're taking your time and you're making it very efficient. Like Nick does the same thing, man. He knows that at this time he has to go because he's got kids. He's got a kid he's got to take care of, right? So, he knows that he has to fit in his workout, and he makes that a priority. Doesn't take away from his family time. He just has to fit it in during his time here. You know what I mean? Which he does very well. And there's not a lot of people that will do that, because they're like, oh, I just, I'm not feeling it today. It's like, yeah, those are the days that you have to do it more than anything. Like, how many times have you come in being like, man, I got to run 10 to 12 miles today. I don't really feel like doing it today, but you do it. Yeah, you do it, man.
Right.
Just like,
and that's why it's good to schedule out something like a marathon, something that's hard, because then you kind of need to do that, right?
That's exactly
keep you
why
accountable.
I do it,
if it's just like a fitness type of thing, like, oh, I just need to exercise today, you're going to be more inclined to make that, because what are you exercising for, right? Like, you're just exercising for health. Well, I just won't have the cookies tonight, right? Like, I could just make a different health decision, and I think that's something too. Like, we always, we are fortunate, like, that we can structure our day a little bit more. Because I've talked to a lot of people that are like, they don't have as much, and that's understandable. And in terms of, say, something like what Hayden's doing, a marathon or a triathlon, yeah, it might not be the time in your life to schedule that, but hey, put that on next year's goal. Or maybe you are amidst a move or something that you have, like, a lot of your free time is already accounted for. Okay, make that the more long-term goal. You can always put it on something. Like, if it's a 2026 goal, fine, that's fine. But you got to start thinking about that and fitting that into your schedule to some extent. It might not be the time right now, but make it happen at some point. Because I can tell you right now, Hayden and Chad are both training for something specifically, and I will be doing the Tough Ruck again. But in terms of the actual training for that, I have a second child coming in December. So, like, this isn't the time for me to kind of get after that. I'm gonna train for it, but as to how my training is going to be, I'm trying to figure that out right now, how it's going to work in terms of if I really want to get after it, or if I'm just going to say, let me just get it done again.
Yeah, but that's a challenge all in itself.
Yeah, for sure.
You've got time.
Yeah,
big time.
No, and I'm definitely going to do it. It's just a matter of, do I want to train for it? Like, because last year we kind of just did, like, the bare minimum, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like,
you did a lot for the bare minimum. You guys were still
we did a lot, but we realistically, like,
probably not
as
much as you could have.
No,
but
yeah, also, exactly. And if I was given the option last year, where it was like, because I was only rucking more on, like, my off days from lifting. Like, so I put it on the back burner, but then I would shift focus, like Hayden has done, where he's still lifting, but it's not his main focus like it was before marathon training. So I would do the same thing, where I would just make my ruck training my priority, and then I would do my supplement would be the weightlifting.
Right. To circle back to the time management piece too, I think it's super important to note that, when you, like, for us and for everybody who's employed and working full time, like, if you have time to budget in your schedule to do something productive towards a goal, you should absolutely do it. That way, when, let's say, you get home for the day, like, your day's done. Like, you've already done everything that you need to do for the day. Like, you can spend time with your family, you can spend time for yourself, and you can take that time to relax and unwind. And that's exactly why I take the time I do during my workday to get things I need done. And I think that's super important, because when I get home at 7:15, like, that's me. It's me time completely. Like, I'm done for the day. Like, I'll do everything I need to do, but, like, I've already accomplished everything I need to accomplish for the day. And I know that I've done something productive towards a certain goal. So for me, like, that allows me to be able to turn everything else off and, like, shut down for the day when I know that I've already accomplished something I need to accomplish. And I think that's super important for people to experience and feel, Because if you go home and you're wound up because you didn't do what you were supposed to throughout the day, it can be stressful, and it can impact different factors of life, which is why I think having something in the horizon, like Nick said, whatever that may be, or even budgeting new habits into your schedule is important, because at the end of the day, like you do have to make time for yourself and be able to unwind regardless of the goals you have, because I think that's how you recover, that's how you rest, and that's how you be better mentally too.
And we could tie in the parental side of this too, like setting an example for your kids. We know Hayden's dad, and we know that man is always training for something. That dude's always like, I want to do this. Yeah, he is a machine. So like, obviously Hayden has learned that, and you see it all the time with, oh yeah, this former professional athlete, look, now their kid is coming up into the pros, and is it because of genetics? Yeah, genetics is a piece of it, but like also they grew up watching their parent, their father, mother be a professional, and how hard they work to be a professional, and they learn those time management skills and the the hard work and the effort that needs to put into that. That's truly where they learned it, because there's plenty of professional athletes whose kids did not make it. You're right, that did. So it's if it were purely a genetics thing, we'd see a lot more of it, but it's the do the hard things, build that tolerance up to it, and make hard things easy things. And now the next hard thing is even harder.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%, man. Like that whole role modeling is super, super important, not only for your kids, but I truly believe it's important even for the workspace. Like I think that the fact that you're doing the marathon, the fact that I'm training for something specific, the fact that Nick always has that on priority is something that just builds strong culture within our company. And I feel like that's part of the reason as to why we not only work so well together, but also why we just kind of keep doing what we're doing, because we're all fueling each other one way or another. Right, you know what I mean? Absolutely. So I think it really is beneficial, because if you have somebody over here in the corner that's like, I don't even know why you guys are doing that. What a waste of time. You know what I mean? It's right. They don't even want to be part of the culture. You know what I mean? But I really, truly believe that is the reason why this all works very, very well, because everybody in it, and it's I think it's great that everybody's doing something almost completely different. But it's also very relative at the same time, you know what I mean? Because all of the challenges and all of the priorities and all of the time management skills are all the same, you know what I mean? We just have different goals in place. So I really, truly believe that is huge in culture building and maintaining a healthy workspace, because without that, I think that, there would be a lot more It'd be a lot harder.
Yeah, I agree completely.
to get it done.
Yeah. It builds the business, like it builds the teamwork. Like Hayden's marathon on Sunday, I'm going and I'm bringing a water bottle for mile 9, like to hand off to him. He's gonna give me his other one. I give him the loaded one with the electrolytes, all that kind of stuff. So like, if I don't show up to mile 9, he might be screwed a little bit, right? Like he's gonna be struggling electrolytes. He's gonna be cramping up. So like, I gotta show up, right? Yes. So like, my job's easy, but at the same time, like we're all supporting each other
for sure.
I can't tell you how many times we've seen Chad in a Speedo at this point. So like, it's you got to do what you got to do. Do I want to see the man in a Speedo? Not entirely. Like that's not my wheelhouse, my cup of tea. But like, hey, you do what you got to do to support each other.
But like you said, it builds a relationship.
That's right.
For sure.
That's
like
right.
You know what I mean, where you can trust each other to do something like that. Like it's perfect. Like I know some people who'd be like, oh no, I can't make it, I won't be there, but it's not. I don't even have to really ask that question. I get people have priorities and
of course
and other things going on, but at the same time, like where we spend so much time with each other, we're like-minded, we're training for similar things. You're like, yeah, I'll be there. Like I can definitely help out any way you need to as well, which I think is important. Right? So
it's actually funny when Hayden told me, like he texted me to tell me he signed up for the marathon. This was like he signed up shortly after the Tough Ruck. I literally put it in the joint calendar with Alicia to let her know, like, hey, look, I'm going to Hayden's marathon.
I do that all the time too.
Yeah, so I literally put it that day, like it was in the calendar. And then she was like, you got Theo that day. I was like, well, he's coming with me. So yeah.
And I'm hoping that I can go as well. I thought it was originally on Saturday, but I'm kind of glad it's on Sunday. And I want to bring Brooke with me because she's somewhat into running as well, and I think
that'd be cool.
For her to be able to
the
see
finish
that
line would
could be really cool for her to see.
She would enjoy being at the. They do a good job at those finish lines where they like announce your name, where you're from, your time, and everybody. There's like a big line of people that you'll run through too, which is cool.
Totally, and you do think, like, for example, like I'm kind of going through this whole process, and I know it's like that for you guys as well, and I know it'll especially be for you with kids, but like for me going through this whole process, it's more about than just getting on stage and like doing challenging things. Like I want my kids to be able to see that, yeah, I'm old, but like I still got it, and I can still do things, number one, but number two, like, you know, if I set my mind to something and I want to like put all my efforts into that thing, I want you to be able to see that and what the outcome can be. So like if something cool happens out of this, like you can see all the hard work that I put into that, and I want you to be able to role model that as well. You know, like I really want this to be a learning experience from you, saying that, you know, wow, you know, I can really learn a lot of stuff from this. So it goes way beyond the fact that like, hey, I want to do this challenging thing for me, but it's like more for being a role model for my kids, you know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And being able for them to see, you know, that hard work can pay off, because I say it all the time now, and I tell this to my kids, and it's kind of sad, but I'm like, I'm pretty strict father, and I do that on purpose. And I do that because you really don't have to try that hard nowadays to be a good person and to like you have good work ethic. You show up to work on time, you like work hard, and you show that like you want to grow within something, and you are like 99.9% ahead of like everybody else. It is
true.
so sad.
Yeah, it is.
Because
It is crazy.
so many of my kids' friends have phones. Like they don't even make their own lunches for school. They don't fold their own laundry. They don't do anything, right? Like all of these parents are setting their kids up for absolute failure. And if I can somehow counteract that and say, hey, listen, if we can just develop some sort of responsibility now, and you can carry that forward, you are going to be light years ahead of everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Which is kind of
Yeah,
sad.
it is.
Because 15, 20 years ago, that was like a given. It was like a given, but it's not a given anymore, because technology has seriously made these kids stupid, like to the point where they're lazy. They, you know, everything is just being hand fed to these kids, and I can't deal with it anymore. And I'm like, it's not the kid's fault. It's the parent's fault. And I don't want to be that parent. You know what I mean? So a lot of parents will look at me and be like, why are you so strict on your kids? It's like, why aren't you? Like, I don't understand. Like, what are you doing? You're not teaching your kids anything. So I think we all have the same mindset there, where it's like, you know, yeah, we're trying to be good role models, but also, you know, it really does show, like, the way that your dad raised you it's not a coincidence that you got this like amazing like job here. And like, we were like, hey, listen, it wasn't even a thought that you had the job, because it's like, dude, you just had the work ethic. You know what I mean? And it's so many people that we had interviewed. It was like, man, I can't believe this is actually a question that's being asked right now.
Yeah,
You
you
know what
see
I
it
mean?
all.
So
You see it all the
it's
time. It's just,
insane.
I don't know. I feel like the biggest thing, like you said, it also comes from like doing what you say you're going to do, right? From at least for me, like one of the things that I appreciated from my parents was that like my mom and my dad would always do what they said they were going to do, right? So if they told me they were going to do something, they would do it. And in return, like I would have to do the same thing. Like if they asked me to do something, I would do it, because I know that if something came up, it would be like an exchange of not an exchange of favors, but it would be like,
yeah, I get it.
you know, like it was one of those things where like, okay, you can stay true to your word. I'm going to stay true to my word. And that's how we kind of grow and things like that. And I appreciated that a ton growing up.
Yeah. And honestly, you probably won't appreciate it until you actually get older and you're like, I get it now. You know what I mean? I mean, that was what happened to me. You know, I didn't really appreciate any of that stuff until I got older, probably when I actually more or less had kids, until I was like, all right, now it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes sense why they did that.
Yeah. And I think everybody needs a role model too. I feel like now it's
Yeah.
just so like, some people just don't have that.
That's
like,
right.
They just don't even have that. Like, and people don't even recognize that, like, oh, like your parents aren't being a role model for you. You know, like I don't even think the parents even realize that, which is unfortunate, because I think that you need to hold yourself to a certain standard. That way, that's the bottom line. You need to hold yourself to a certain standard, and I think that will show within the family and kids and everything like that. And it's just unfortunate that it's not now. It's sad.
I know. And I know this could be a whole podcast in itself. And it probably could be, and it should be. But I want to talk a little bit more about the training that you've been going through, because I've been watching you evolve over the past like 3 to 4 or 5 months, you know, with the things that you've been doing, especially with having a coach and kind of giving you all of this like great information. Right. And I know one of the biggest changes that you've made is like the nutrition. Yes, not only what you eat, but you've always ate well, right? But for those that might be thinking about doing a marathon, or, you know, have done it, but maybe haven't gone to the point where they've invested in a coach. What have been the biggest changes that you've made nutritionally, like that have given you that extra performance, during your runs?
For sure. I think one, increasing the volume of certain nutrients that I'm eating on a daily basis has increased. Like my carbohydrate intake has increased. My protein has probably increased a little bit, but more or less stayed the same. Fats have increased a little bit throughout the day, throughout a daily basis, just because the volume of carbohydrates and the volume of protein and certain things have increased. But those have definitely like been my dailies, like more carbohydrates, more protein, a little bit more fat, have been like my staples throughout the whole entire marathon training progress. However, I really do structure my pre and post nutrition appropriately. Like pre, I want to have a relatively full-ish stomach, but I want to make sure that whatever I'm eating before a long run is carbohydrate dense, not like more of like some fast digesting during the runs, some slower digesting before the runs, and then after it's just, once again, carbohydrates, plenty of protein, fluids, to replenish all the stores. And I think the biggest thing for me moving forward, and as I'm training for the marathon, is after you run, like we really need to replenish your glycogen stores, and with that like comes in like refilling all of your carbohydrates and trying to get as many in as, not as many in as possible, but enough in to fully refuel those, so that way you're not bonking on your next runs or totally tanking on your runs moving forward. But it's definitely been increased food intake, trying to keep my calories high so I'm not going into a huge caloric deficit, to maintain at least some skeletal muscle mass and try to stay as lean as possible.
Which I think is super important, because so many people, I think, forget about the fact that they need to maintain what they already have, what they still have, right? Because skeletal muscle mass tends to be one of those things that we probably don't think enough of when we're doing all this marathon training, which obviously can lead to other things.
And before, like when I trained for my first marathon, I absolutely, like I was in PT school. Like I was going to school with a lunchbox that absolutely wasn't full enough. Like I wasn't eating nearly enough. Like I probably was, I don't know, eating like 200 grams, 150 grams of carbohydrates a day. Now I'm closer to like 500, 600 a day. And I know it too, because I remember like I would used to like grill chicken tenders like every night and bring those with like a salad and an apple. And like I would eat some rice, but I didn't really eat it. Like I absolutely wasn't fueling enough. And I would try to fuel on my runs, and I'd be like, oh, why do I feel like shit? And it was because like I wasn't fueling appropriately before. And now it's like, I remember I went out for an 18-mile run a couple weeks ago, and the night before I think it was the night we went out with Jesse. And I had eaten a ton of sushi. I had eaten like whatever was in front of me, I was pretty much eating. And I know I had eaten well during the day too. But I remember going on my run and being like, wow, I feel great. And then I was like trying to think about like what I ate. I'm like, I definitely had enough carbohydrates yesterday, and I definitely made sure I was definitely like fully fueled. And like during the run, like I think I only brought like 5 or 6. I got lost that day too. I didn't expect to be out as long as I was. But I was out for like 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like I was out for a long ass time. And I probably, like, just because I was so well fueled, like I killed one water bottle, which is like 13, 14 ounces. And then I had like 4 or 5 gels, which have 25 grams of carbohydrates and 100 calories in them. So like truly on the run, I wasn't fueling enough. But because I had made sure I got everything in the day before and leading up to that run, I was totally fine. So I think the importance of timing importance is crucial.
I'll take the assist on that one too, because the night before, the group we were with just wanted to keep drinking, and I snuck up to the bar to get me and Hayden another one, but I was like, can I just get soda water this time?
That's what I do. A couple solos.
I was like, can I just no more alcohol for us? Everyone else kept drinking. We're just like, nah.
That's the hack, man. For anybody that's out there being like, oh, but I don't want to drink soda water in the line, man.
That's it.
Nobody asked any questions.
That's right.
But if you're just drinking water, too many questions.
Although a lot of bars will put it in a different glass, so then you're caught.
Yeah.
It's like they put it in the paper cup. Oh no.
Yeah.
They got me. There's no alcohol in here.
Yeah, but I mean, you were just in the back, just counting all of your carbohydrates, because I mean, there's a formula involved with that.
Oh yeah, there is.
That I'm sure you never really gave big thought to.
I can't remember the exact formula, but I know that with marathon training, the rule of thumb is however many calories you burn an hour, you should be refueling a third of those. So for me, being a guy who runs with a little bit of a higher heart rate, at a little bit of a faster pace, I burn close to 1,000 calories an hour. People are like, really? I'm like, yeah, well, apparently that's what my watch tells me, and that's what I've seen multiple times. So for me,
well, people are now thinking about like, yeah, but I go to the gym and I hop on the circuit for an hour. It's like not the same, man.
Not the same.
Yeah, I promise you're probably not going to burn 1,000 calories. But once again, like for me, like that, it's going to be super important. Like I didn't know that before. Like I just knew that I was going to try to fuel early and often in my first marathon. But this time around, it's like, no, like I need to make sure I get at least 100 grams of carbohydrates in the first hour. I need to make sure I have at least 300 calories in the first hour. Like those are musts for me at this point, where it's like fueling in something like a marathon is equally as important as pre and post. So it's like, because if your glycogen stores are going to get wasted if you don't take anything in during a marathon. And that's why people say, like, I think in this marathon on Sunday, there's at mile 20 spray painted on the ground is something called the wall, where it's like a bunch of bricks that are like falling over. And because usually around, like, physiologically at the 2.5 hour mark, your body is like, damn, I've been working for 2.5 hours at like my threshold heart rate pace, because a marathon is a threshold event. It's not like as much as people would love. I'm sure the elite guys do it at an aerobic pace, but it's a threshold event. It's in between your max heart rate and your sub max. So it's a physiologically your body needs those stores, or else you're going to start to get those muscle cramps and start to kind of bonk out. But I would
say running culture as a whole, they tend to be not fueling enough anyway, like most, not eating enough outside of running and not fueling enough in, and then definitely not doing enough strength training. So those are like the two big things that runners, but not aside from your running, like outside your run training, optimizing nutrition and then adding a little bit more strength training will just improve performance big time.
Yeah, but counting them has been crucial for me. I think making sure I probably do about 550 to 600 grams of carbohydrates a day. And I think that's been my sweet spot. Right now, I'm doing 900 a day, 3 days leading up until the event. So 900 yesterday, 900 today, 900 tomorrow.
See, and then, you guys want to eat more, run a marathon.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot of food. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of food.
But you know what? You brought up a great point, and that was something that I've done within the last year as well. And I don't think enough people give enough thought to intra-workout nutrition. And that's like a missing link, you know. Everybody just goes in there, they just bring their water. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with water, as long as, if it's got electrolytes in it, great, right? But there's other things that, you know, can help not only enhance your performance in the gym, whether you're just a recreational gym goer or you're a marathon runner, but can also, you know, help replenish those glycogen stores that you're crushing, you know, and the carbohydrates are huge. And that was something that I've changed in the last year in terms of like my carbohydrate intake during my workouts, which I've never done before. And which is kind of mind-boggling. And the amount of energy and the amount of intensity that I'm able to have during my workouts now far succeeds what I've been able to do in the previous years, which I'm kind of upset about. But it is what it is, right? But I mean, that's like, those are the things that you learn over time. But yeah, I think that's a great point.
And down a deeper rabbit hole. Sorry, guys. I always have to do it.
You do.
If someone's having pain with any kind of physical activity, there is a fueling error. Absolutely. Because there's a mitochondrial component to pain. Anytime someone's in pain, there is a deficit in mitochondria. And the mitochondria, the energy producers of the cell. So they're creating the cellular energy for this, you know, glycogen, stores to be released and then to fill the glycogen stores back up. So if you're getting pain pretty consistently, it's like, oh yeah, every time I marathon train, I get this pain. It's like, you got to work on fueling big time. It's like, there's certainly rehab things you can do, exercises, stuff like that, but like, you got to work on the fueling for sure.
I was going to say, if anybody's intra workout and pre and post nutrition is dialed in right now, it's definitely Chad's.
Yeah.
I think you should see the kitchen back there. We got all sorts.
He's got
tubs of everything.
He's got.
You brought fruit in for the first time since I've been here.
I'm on your kick right now, man. Like, I'm carbo loading right now. I'm having a great day. The other beginning of the week was tough. It was depletion, so I pretty much had no carbs, and then now I'm filling. So we call it a fill and spill. So now I'm trying to figure out how many carbs I'm taking in right now until I kind of what they call spill over. And I'm close. I'm getting there. But again, like it's like you. It's everybody's different. Everything is so individualized, and what may require about 1,200 grams of carbs for me might be 700 grams for somebody else, and vice versa. So you don't really know who you are until you've kind of put yourself through that. So a lot of it is, just kind of going through the motions. But I think I would say as a whole, most people probably are on the lower side, and if they are having problems with losing weight, it's more or less, it's probably just a macro proportioning issue than it is anything else,
This guy's so locked in right now. He eats banana every time he pees. So
while he's peeing,
while I'm peeing,
because I'm peeing all day.
He has to finish the banana before he finishes peeing. That's the rule. That's the rule of thumb, to make sure he doesn't lose any stores.
Today I got to take in 3.5 gallons of water.
Dang.
So 3.5 gallons of water, and my sodium intake is increased a little bit too. So, we're flushing, man. Yeah, we're flushing. So, just trying to get as dry as possible for Saturday. Saturday is like a mock peak day for me, and then 2 weeks from now is the actual D-Day. So, but stoked about it.
I was gonna say it's
a lot.
Definitely a good time period for all of us right
now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Experimenting with new things.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like, and the patients really do get in on it. You know what I mean? And I think it's great. And I thoroughly enjoy it, even though like some days are harder than others, no doubt, in terms of like energy and all that. But when patients come in and they see you doing that, and they may be either going through the same thing, because like we do treat marathon runners, we do treat people that go to the gym all the time. Like we treat people that are just, they like to just, like Nick, the kid just likes to stay bouncy and just stay moving,
That's it.
And people get genuinely curious too, which is one of the things that I've started to realize. Like, I don't love to talk about like certain things,
right?
But like when you start talking about it with somebody, like they do get curious about it. They're like, like tell me, and like you hope that you could potentially inspire somebody to take something on like that. Like I've talked to plenty of people who are like, oh, I could never do that. But there's something that they could probably get out of it, or do something similar to that, right? Whether it may not be a marathon, but what about like a 5K or a 10K, right? And I think just hearing that it's still capable, like possible at certain levels, is huge for them.
I think there's so many people too, you don't even realize it, like how many people that you're motivating or inspiring. You have no idea, because sometimes people just kind of keep that in because either they're, they don't want to say it, or they're embarrassed to say, right? But then there are very much those people out there that want you to know, you know what I mean? Because it helps, because what you're doing is helping them, you know what I mean? So they don't want you to stop what you're doing because it's helping them, which is great, you know what I mean? But I think it all plays into it very, very much so. And I think you're absolutely right. Like the patients really do get in on it. They're like, what are you eating for lunch today? You know what I mean? How many miles you running today? Hayden will come back from a run and be like, what was it? Like a quick 10 miles? You know what I mean? So it's kind of fun, and it's all part of the culture here, and it's all part of what we do. And that whole practice, what we preach, it really does not only lend to, hey, we understand what you're going through, but we're also going to keep you accountable to it because we're doing it too. You know what I mean? So it's not something that we're going to tell you to do that we wouldn't either have done ourselves or are currently doing right now, and I think that speaks volumes for people, and it does create a lot more accountability and buy-in for the stuff that we do here, because we're not just going to tell you to do something and just be like, well, this is because the book says to do it that way, or I heard somebody, or research says. It's like, no, research may say that, but we also do it, and we also know that it works, and I think that's the important thing for sure. And I think that's why we do it. We love it. We don't just do PT because it's a job, or performance training because it's a job. Like, we do it because it's like a part of our life, So I think that it's great that we do all that. And that was the message that I wanted to get across today was, know that you're not the only one doing it, and that we understand what you're going through, and we want you to understand what we're going through, and this is a good way for us to talk about that, because a lot of people are genuinely curious about it. They just don't ask, and Nick's got another kid coming up soon, and,
it's a hard thing.
It's a hard thing. And, and I guess the big question that I have for you, because I know you guys are dialed in, are there any changes that you guys are going to make this time around with the second child versus what you did with the first child?
Like from a parent, like
Parenting slash, life accommodations slash all the things.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the biggest thing from like the childbirth process is, Alicia's big goal is to go unmedicated.
Of
and
course.
do it without any of the conventional interventions. And so that's going to be just big thing up front. But then after that, any kind of big changes. I mean,
you are having a girl this time.
Yeah, we're having
that's
a
kind of a
girl.
big change.
It is a big change. It is a big change. That's going to be the biggest change for me.
Real.
Yeah, I grew up with three. I was one of
Yeah,
three
that's
boys,
right.
and so I'm yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But nothing too crazy. I mean, I could go down some rabbit holes about things like vaccination, but we're not going to talk about that.
I think everybody already knows where we stand on
Yeah,
that.
but we're not doing anything total like too different there.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty similar. And if anyone's curious about that, feel free to ask me. But we're not going to talk about it here because that would be a totally different topic.
Canceled.
Of discussion. Yeah, of discussion as well. Yeah. Other than that, nothing too crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh.
normally they say, the second one, people are just like, meh,
No,
whatever. But I don't think that's going to be you
No.
guys.
The biggest thing for us really is just trying to figure the work thing out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the big
Don't worry.
thing is
We got it.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Alicia's work is changing.
Yeah, Hayden's working 60
I've
hours
got
a week.
Yeah, Hayden's taking my job. He's taking my job as well as his job. I'm actually going to take a page out of like the modern lifestyle and just do nothing. I'm actually I'm gonna pick up video games. I've never played
Good luck
video
with
games
that.
before,
Nice.
but I'm gonna play video
Really?
games.
Perfect.
I don't
And
see
let my-
that.
Let my wife take care of two kids. I'm just gonna play video games in the
I see.
basement while I do nothing.
Yeah, really.
And I'm gonna have my headset on, eat some
Pizza.
Cheetos and play video games. It's gonna be pretty sweet actually. I don't know what video game I don't even know what video games are out there these days. But
Seriously.
no. So I mean, and that's another thing too. Like the world is different nowadays, right? Like I said before, where it's a world of comfort and convenience, but also it's a different landscape. It's a different working world. It's a different financial world. It used to be the type where typically the husband would work, mom would be a stay-at-home mom. That's not the reality anymore. So we're doing. There's hard things in life. There's no doubt about that, but they're different hard things, right? So these hard things that we're talking about are more like what, like our ancestors, like I said before, would have had to deal with. So that's what we're trying to do. Just because the new hard things, the financial hardships and stuff, it's just stressful, right? Like, so doing these other endeavors, marathons, getting in cold tubs, that kind of stuff, it helps you manage the financial stressors of life and those schedule stressors of life,
100%.
right? So you can better manage that and be a better husband, father, mother, wife, anything, brother, sister, whatever. You can just be a better person and not have to. Because I think a lot of the struggles that couples deal with, divorces, things like that, that's based around a lot of the modern stuff we deal with, the financial stuff, the stuff that how do you navigate that? It's hard. There's no doubt about it, but you can absolutely have a better head on your shoulders about it with some of the stuff we're talking about. For sure.
To kind of piggyback on that, Katie's actually reading this book called The Power of Now. Have you guys ever read that?
I've heard of that.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, she's been I haven't read it, but she kind of like talks about it every now and then, and it's interesting. You guys, if you're having a tough time like living in the present, then it would be a great book for you to read, because everybody is so concerned with what happened a week ago or what's going to happen tomorrow, and totally miss what's happening right in front of them. You know what I mean? Their kid could be taking their first steps, and you're like, oh, my schedule is so busy tomorrow. It's like, dude, it's such a waste, man, to think about stuff like that, because it's like you are missing everything in front of you. And I know the book goes far beyond that, but it is a great perspective to kind of start thinking about stuff like that. When you actually start thinking about it, you're like, oh, I've done that. And just to try to apply that, like when I'm at the gym, I literally will just think about my workout, and I try not to like look at my phone unless I'm like looking at my workout on my phone, because I want to be totally invested in that time. You know what I mean? Same like when I'm home. Like I took this page out of your book at night, because you won't be able to get a hold of me at night anymore. at 8:30, my phone goes on airplane mode. I just can't deal with the notifications anymore. Like, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
So I literally
try the Sunday thing. The Sunday thing's amazing. I don't even know where my phone is. Just no phone on Sunday. Like, so I'll have it in the morning, just because like Alicia may teach a class or something. Like, she's gonna call. But like the Sunday afternoons, I've been leaving my phone in one place and pretty much not touching it. And I get to it, and I see you guys were talking and texting, and I'm just like, well, I'll see him tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yesterday,
right.
Well, I was on my way home last night, but yesterday, these guys texted about wearing pink. I'm not wearing pink today. And I just was
don't be using that excuse. Don't be using that excuse.
No, but Sundays I've been doing that where I just don't.
No, I like that.
I leave my phone, and it's awesome because and I'm glad you brought that up, because that is probably the big change, like for the second one, because the first one, when you have your first child, you're so consumed with like trying to figure out the parenting thing and like, oh, are we doing this right? Are we doing this right? That you're right, you do miss some of those moments. And I think that's definitely what the number two, just going to be more kind of in the present. Not that I feel like I missed like anything huge with Theo, but I think it just like goes by so fast that all of a sudden you're like, oh, I kind of miss when, he was this size, or he couldn't do this, or whatever, and it just it goes by so fast. And trying to be present in the moment and soak all that stuff in is big time.
I think that's super important too. And even for me, like, don't have a family. Like, I'm pretty much just like, I have friends and family who I want to see and who I devote my time to. Like, I love being around my family. I love being around my friends. That's kind of like where I put a lot of my time and energy. But when I get out and like for something like a run, people ask me the same question all the time. Like, what do you think about? And like, what do you like? What like? How do you question. Like? How do you do that? Like, how do you go out and run? Like, I'd be so bored. Like, I don't think about. I couldn't tell you a single thing I think about when I'm on my run, because it's just a time for me to like get out, work hard, and also just like shut my brain off for an hour to an hour and a half, like, and not have to worry about anything. Because when I get back in from the run, like, I kid you not, like, I'm probably not even done sweating yet, but like by the time I'm already trying to like, I have that, like, now it's like my head is clear. Like, I have like tasks I need to get done. Like, everything gets done. Like, I kid you not, probably 2 hours after I finish something like a run, where I'm able to shut my brain off for a certain period of time. Right after I finish that, it's clear headed. I know what I need to get done. I know what I want to do, and I can just relax after that. For me, it's just, don't have too many stressors in life, but still, like, sometimes you just want to turn your brain off and like enjoy not having to worry or think about anything.
Dude, you start doing that now, though, it's going to be way easier for you going forward. And
right.
I never did that, and that screwed me over probably for the first 5 years of me opening up this business. Like, it really, really killed me. So like, I'm glad I can do it now, but I kind of regret the fact that I didn't take advantage of it sooner. You know what I mean? And a lot of that's just practice, just doing it. Just feeling okay with it. Yeah, I'm gonna miss that notification. It's totally okay.
It sucks because I did my last. I did my last long run on whatever it was. Like, it was nine days out of my last marathon, so it was Friday. I think I did my last long run, or my last like longish run. Did 9 miles, and my headphones broke. So my headphones were working. I do listen to music on my runs because I actually enjoy listening to music on my runs. And I was like, shit, what can I do? And I have a pair of wired headphones and my phone. So I was like, whatever. I usually just bring my watch, plug my AirPods in, and like, I get no notifications. I don't get anything because my watch isn't connected to my phone. So it's just music. When I brought my phone, it was blowing up the whole time. I was getting notifications from Instagram, getting notifications from my email, getting notifications from text, and it drove me insane.
Dude, it's not
I was
fun.
like, I actually got mad, like, on the run, and it like almost ruined it for me, because I was like, it not like it notifies me or anything like that, but I can feel it in my hand buzzing, and then I can see it. I'm like, who needs me right now? Like, I don't want to know who needs. Like, I don't want to know anything right now. Like, it's just like, that's time for me. And like, it was like my brother texting me or something like that too, and it still made me. It still annoyed me, because I'm like, that's my time. Like, I don't want to know who's messaging me, or talking to me, or calling me right now. But I think it's good to have that kind of escape, because it just helps me. Like, afterwards, like, I get more work done. Like, after I go for a run and I come back here, it's like I eat, I get ready for work, and then I can be productive with my note taking, with whatever else I have to do.
That was the main reason why we did that 12-2 break, because it's a good break between the morning and the afternoon. So it's like, if you can get some type of activity in, it really does recharge you for the second half.
For sure.
If you're here all day, you know what I mean? So I really truly believe that it has improved work performance, no doubt. But it also gives you no excuse to not be able to get in what you need to get in and still have time for your family when you get home, like that, because that is that important to us here, that we make that happen. So I think that's great. I think these are all great take homes for sure. And yeah, I like it.
People who are stuck on the past versus people who are stuck on the future. You think one's worse than the other?
Oh.
Like what's worse to be stuck in? I feel like a lot of our patients are in the past. Stuck in the past, and that makes sense with pain. When you're in pain, like you're stuck on something behind you, and you certainly need to get away from that. But there's also like it's a slippery slope with being stuck on the future too. Like you're number one, you're not in the present, but like, I mean, what happens when it doesn't go the way you're thinking?
Do you think that if those people are stuck in the past, they are more likely to have, anxiety about the because I'm sure. Like it's got to go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, but I that's a good question.
Because I'm trying to think about myself, like where I find myself going. I think I'm more the future.
I'm 100% the future.
I'm constantly like, whoa, okay. You're thinking about something going on, and then I'll think about something in the past, be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. That happened. But so I wonder if like there's connections there, like the people who are like stuck on the past, like they're more like almost more anxious. I don't know. Like it's.
I think I would assume so, because like
it's also probably
truly
variable,
like with the I feel like this is once again going down the rabbit hole. I feel like you don't truly know what's going to come in the future, regardless of the steps you take to like set yourself up for your future. You don't know what's going to come. Like there's so many unpredictable things in today's society that could happen that derail you. However, like the past has already happened. So like that's something physical that you has happened. So if you're holding on to something in the past, like that's like something you can truly grasp. Whereas like in the future, like I guess the unpredictability of it could probably screw people or just mess people up. But I think like when you are holding on to something in the past, like, oh, I used to be able to do this, I used to be able to do that.
Like, you're going to make it repeat itself.
I feel like you can truly grasp that. Whereas like in the future, like I can't tell you where I'm going to be. And
I also think that if you have a tendency, I think you could take more advantage of the things that you've done in the past than in the future. Okay. And the only reason why I say that is because you can use it as a lesson going forward. True. Because I think the people that have the hard time with the future stuff is it's just like pent up anxiety of stuff that may not even happen. Number one,
right.
And if it does happen, we always make it out to be worse than it actually is, right? For sure. Yep. So it's like I've done that many times where I'm like, if I just think about something that I got to deal with maybe the next week, whether it's with a patient or something business related, right? And I'm just like. And then it happens and I'm like, oh, that really wasn't that bad. I don't know why I freaked out about that so much. You know what I mean? So it's like, if that happens enough times, I feel like you learn enough from that where it's like, I guess I probably really shouldn't stress about that too much because it might not even happen. Or if it does, it might not even be that bad. You know what I mean? So, but I do think that a lot of people have a hard time with that. And I think that's kind of exactly what that book talks about too, which is kind of interesting that you say that because, that's huge. That's a big part of people's stresses in life for sure. And I think that technology has not made that any easier to cope with because, it's just more available, to think about stuff like that. But I think these are all definitely coping mechanisms. Like
you get your Facebook memories every day. It's like 14 years ago on this day. And you're like, no, I thought that was behind me. It's back.
If it's on the internet, man, it's not gone.
No, it's not.
It's not gone. It's there forever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, but I think this is a good talk. I think I would like to, if anybody has any questions kind of going forward, whether it's regarding Hayden's training, my training, or, Nick's, upcoming life events, we'd love to hear about it because those are certainly things that we can talk about because I know those are things that people go through all the time. So if there's any way that we can kind of help you with those situations based on our experience or based on what we've seen other people kind of go through, then we'd be happy to kind of go through that a little bit more. But I think this was good. I love the messages that we've given today in terms of the practicing what we preach, but like also doing hard things. I think those are all great things that more people need to do nowadays because I feel like not a lot of people challenge themselves like they should now. And like you said, Nick, this is the world of convenience. And I feel like we've been very comfortable and convenient with the way things are set up with life. And I think that's just making people, for lack of better words, lazy,
I agree,
and not motivated, And I think a lot of that is contributing to a lot of physical and mental stresses, which are obviously decreasing performance, decreasing health and wellness, and all that other stuff. So I think these are great kind of topics to discuss for sure, going forward. And I'd love to talk about it more for sure. But I think that's good. I think we got that one pretty well. So upcoming events actually going on with ProForm, we've got our open enrollment starting next month. So for those of you that don't know that, check out our link in our bio on Instagram. It is the one time of year where you offer the biggest discounted rate on our services. Please take advantage of that. It's pretty much starts the beginning of November and goes till, I think it's Thanksgiving, right? Yeah, it's pretty much the month of Thanksgiving, the month of November. So take advantage of that. We are also planning on possibly doing, and we haven't really announced this yet, but possibly doing a Christmas party this year. We're kind of talking about the specifics with that, but we definitely want to do something really fun this year for our patients and community to kind of show them, that we're here for them, and we want to have some fun and show them that, we're all not just about training and, doing hard stuff, but we'd like to have a little fun with you guys too. So
yeah, you got to bring us a present, though.
Well, the stipulation is you have to bring an ugly Christmas sweater. That's the stipulation.
Ooh, nice.
And there might be a surprise guest from Santa. We're not really sure yet. We're still working out the details on that one. Hayden's the closest one so far with the beard, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Carissa will definitely be sending out some more information on all that stuff going forward. But yeah, that's closed, man. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next episode.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us in the rack this week. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can also find us online at proformptma.com or on social media at proformptma. And remember, if you train inside the rack, you better be thinking outside the rack.